Hello, welcome to News Now on TV360. I am Fidelia Aguncha. The Nigerian Army says its troops have intercepted a female suicide bomber in Adamawa State. The Army says the female bomber was intercepted by troops deployed at a checkpoint in Gulak, Adamawa State. She was gunned down after attempting to detonate her suicide vest at Dar village in the northeastern state. The Army says troops are now working with local hunters and vigilantes to cordon off the incident area and search for fleeing Boko Haram suspects. Well, the latest incident comes a day after President Muhammadu Buhari met with the country's security chiefs at the presidential villa in Abuja. That meeting was called after the military admitted soldiers were killed by Boko Haram insurgents in a devastating ambush in Borno State. The military did not reveal the death toll, but media reports suggest as many as 100 soldiers were killed. Buhari, who has warned Nigerians not to politicize the killings, has now assured that government will step up its fight against the Boko Haram insurgents. He says he will be engaging the military and intelligence chief in extensive discussions on the next steps in the anti-terrorism war. Well, one of Nigeria's biggest oil scandals is back in the news. The sale of the OPL 245 oil block has always generated controversies, with a former Attorney General of Nigeria, Mohammed Adoke, and a former Minister of Petroleum, Dan Atete, standing trial for alleged corruption alongside two other oil giants. A new revelation in the case is now causing a stir. The campaign group Global Witness, in its analysis, says the deal cost Nigeria an estimated $6 billion. Back here in Nigeria, a non-governmental organization, Human and Environmental Development Agenda, HEDA, is working with experts in the petroleum industry to dig out more facts on the deal. They held a press conference in Lagos to unveil what they have found out. Adeshewa Odushoga has the rest of the story.
Spanning some 2,000 square kilometers, the oil prospecting license OPL 245 oil block, located in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria, is one of Africa's most oil-promising oil block. However, its sale by the Nigerian government in 2011 has been shrouded in controversy. In 2016, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission filed corruption charges against former Nigerian officials and oil giant ENI and Shell. Both companies are also facing similar trial in Italy. This non-governmental organization is here to cast more spotlight on the deal. President Resources for Development Consulting, Don Hubert, begins the briefing by giving an economic analysis of the deal.
I mentioned that Shell had produced this document in 2009, assessing the value of the block, and the first thing we did was we tried to benchmark ourselves against the Shell valuation. It was never going to be a perfect fit because much of the information was not available in this one document. But our benchmarking exercise got us to within 3.5%. So it gives us a very high degree of confidence in the nature of our analysis and in essentially our sense that we pretty much understand the concept of the project the same way that Shell did. Let me say, before I turn to the description of the current fiscal terms, that we strongly believe that our valuation of OPL 245 is, if anything, an underestimate. And we believe that for two reasons. First, the exploration prospects for OPL 245 are very good, and the company's documents say this. So we have used the publicly available figure of 560 million barrels of recoverable oil as the base case for our analysis, but we believe that there is a high likelihood that more oil will be found and that the block will be richer than we have indicated. If we look at these three different sets of fiscal terms, we see that in the 2003 contract, the government doesn't receive a royalty because the water depth for OPL is too deep. They do receive a production tax, and they receive a share of profit oil. Under the 2005 terms, a royalty is added, so the government has three sources of revenue: a royalty, production tax, or petroleum profits tax, and a share of profit oil. And this is the crucial point of my entire presentation, is that under the terms that currently govern Block OPL 245, The government does not receive a share of profit oil.
Also speaking at the event, Barnaby Pearce, manager Global Witness, adds his voice to why the deal must be cancelled.
I think what we've shown today is the economic consequences of continuing with this deal. That this deal massively deprives Nigeria of its share from its oil to the tune of $4.5 or $6 billion, depending on which previous contract could have been adopted. There will be consequences, but I'll leave it to my colleague, Mr. Suraju, to explain what the government's position in court has been over this deal, and whether that lines up with their practice at present is up to the government to explain.
The chairman of HEDA, Onlariwaju Suraj, in his analysis gives new discoveries on the OPL 245 deal and why Nigeria should not be bound by the contract agreement.
Largely, the new information on OPL 245, based on the post-evaluation analysis by Resource for Development Consulting, further shows that the physical terms that emerged from the resolution agreement of 2011 and the PSA signed between Eni and Shell in 2012 are not consistent with the essence of a normal production sharing system. The PSA is an agreement between two international oil companies, that is Eni and Shell. In other contexts, this agreement could be called a joint venture agreement or a joint operating agreement between just Eni and Shell. We therefore maintain that Nigeria could not be bound by OPL 245 contract agreement, considering the new information that has provided further insight into the rip-off. The controversial terms of the OPL 245 compromises Nigeria's potential revenue from the oil block, considering that the contract is hugely at variance with terms on which Shell had been awarded the same license.
The corruption cases surrounding the OPL 245 is still ongoing in Nigeria and Italy. In Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari has insisted on the continuation of the trial. The president also rejected Attorney General Abubakar Malami's proposal on how to resolve the impasse. Adeshawa Odushaga, TV360, Nigeria.
And in politics, the two main candidates for Nigeria's presidency may have released their manifestos, but not everyone is impressed. Political analyst has pointed loopholes in the promises made by incumbent Muhammadu Buhari and his main challenger, Atiku Abubakar. He is accusing Buhari of failing to meet up to previous demands and is questioning how realistic Atiku's plans are.
The two documents are very presumptuous, in my own estimation. Presumptuous in the sense that, yes, the next level documents told us what has been achieved and the next level they want to take the country. But we do know that much of what is being promised were also previously promised in 2014, 2015. Take, for instance, the issue of 35% affirmative action, which APC candidate is promising. I've asked time and again, why has it been very difficult for him to honor that electoral promise? Why didn't we see that 35% affirmative action under his administration in the last 3.5 years? The two female candidates that even had cause to resign their appointment, that's Aisha Juma Alazan, as well as the former Minister of Environment. Both of them were replaced by men. Aisha Mohammed, that went to the UN, was replaced by a man. Aisha Juma Alazan was replaced by another man, another female candidate, but from was just moved in. So what I'm saying is that why is that if you are promising 35% appointive position in 2019, why is it difficult for you to start from now so that we know that at least you are consolidating on that? Why should that be a next level decision? Then the 15 million jobs they're promising, why haven't we seen those million jobs in the last 3.5 years? Then Atiku is promising an average of 2.5 million jobs every year and 1 million jobs in the petrochemical industry in the next 10 years. Should we have to wait that long? The bottom line, again, with the Making Nigeria Work by Atiku Abubakar is that it's a 6-year policy document. And some people are already saying, if you are supposed to do one term, as he has claimed he will do one term, why do you have to come up with a policy document for 6 years? Are we not going to have a scenario on our hands like that of former President Goodluck Jonathan, who some people in PDP claimed, said he was going to do one term, only to throw his hands in the ring and contested for the second time?
The Osun Governorship Election Petition Tribunal, sitting in the FCT High Court, Uphold, has shifted hearing in the petition filed by the People's Democratic Party and its candidate, Ademola Adeleke, until December 5. This is to enable parties in the matter put their houses in order. The tribunal ordered all parties appearing before it to file and exchange all necessary processes that will facilitate quick hearing of all issues on or before the adjourned date. Justice Ibrahim Mohammed Siraja, who is the chairman of the tribunal, also ordered the lawyers to cooperate with his tribunal to enable it to discharge its mandate within the time allowed by law. Siraja held that the tribunal may abridge time for the party, where necessary in order to ensure quick dispensation of the petition within the ambit of the law. And in education, members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities are expected to meet with the Nigerian government officials on Monday. The lecturers are meeting with the government to continue discussions on their nearly 1-month-old strike. They are demanding the implementation of the 2009 agreement with the federal government and have vowed to continue the strike until all their demands are met. The strike has forced hundreds of thousands of Nigerian university students to be out of school, with many of them complaining about the situation. Well, in health, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency is seeking the collaborative effort of traditional rulers in the north of Nigeria in the fight against childhood killer diseases. The Chief Executive Officer of the agency, Faisal Shuaib, made this demand at the Northern Traditional Rulers Committee emergency meeting on community engagement framework in Abuja. Faisal Shuaib wants traditional rulers to improve on the monitoring and supervision of primary healthcare services in their domains.
What we're doing here today is to symbolize how that engagement happens, how the traditional institution is involved in line listing children once they are born, ensuring that they go to the health facility for the vaccines, and then when there's an outreach in their communities, ensuring that all eligible children are provided with the vaccines. And if, peradventure, either by omission or commission, any child misses their vaccinations, the traditional institution, our traditional leaders, will actually help track those families and ensure that those vaccines are given free of charge. So for us, we're really excited about what this really represents. So at the end of today, there will be manuals that all levels of traditional institutions will actually take home that describes their roles and responsibilities in a way that is easy to understand, in a way that they can also take back to their communities and really cascade down in terms of training the lower level traditional leaders.
I am hereby calling on my fellow members to use our platforms through the currently reinvigorated community engagement framework for mobilization of our caregivers for increased routine immunization uptake and the improvement of other health-seeking behavior of our people. The NTLC have demonstrated considerable improvement in the acceptance of vaccine and even more sustained ownership and participation in other public health interventions in the past. There is therefore no doubt in my mind that under the leadership and guidance of the current Northern Traditional Rulers, our communities will attain significant improvement in routine immunization coverage.
President Muhammadu Buhari has paid tribute to a late Nigerian poet, Ikegu Oke. The poet and former journalist died at the National Hospital in Abuja. Oke won the Nigeria Prize for Literature sponsored by the NLNG for his collection of poems, The Hairside, the previous year. As a journalist, Oke worked at the now-rested Next newspaper as well as Daily Times. In his career, which spanned over 3 decades, Oke churned out quite a number of masterpieces which earned him due recognition. In 2010, Nadine Gordimer, winner of the 1991 Nobel Prize in Literature, selected Salute Without Guns, Oke's second collection of poems, as her Book of the Year for the Times Literature Supplement. 4 years later, Oke was among 4 Nigerian poets whose works were picked to be featured in the second Genesis, an anthology of contemporary world poetry. Well, we will take a short break now and return shortly. Stay with us.
In the last 3 years, we have built a multi-purpose center, which is the envy of all in our constituency. And I can tell you that the people who are living there are already enjoying it.
Guy, do you think what this man just said is true? See, I seriously doubt. I'm sure it's one of those their silly lies.
And wait, do you know there's a way to find out if these things he's saying is true or not? This is the Construct app. It gives people like us a sure way to track implementation of constituency projects. It gives valid and verified information on location of projects, amounts allocated, amount funded, the level of job done, and even the profiles of concerned legislators. You and I can post directly on this app.
Are you serious?
This is the Go-To app if you want to know how our Commonwealth is being expanded by the government.
Wow. Let's even see if what this man said is true. Show me.
The Construct app is developed by Other Paper Nigeria with support from USAID and is available on both Google Play Store and Apple Store.
And it's true.
Of course, I told you.
Welcome back. Let us now join Annette Felix for the latest in business. Hello, Annette.
Hello, Fidelia.
So I hear more people are now reacting to the Central Bank of Nigeria's decision to retain the MPC rate at 14%. Could you tell us more about this?
That's true, Fidelia. The decision by the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria to retain the interest rate at 14% is generating reaction in Nigeria. The Apex Bank voted to retain that figure, and that's after a 2-day meeting in Abuja. This development is generating concerns among stakeholders, and an analyst in Nigeria, Muda Yusuf, he's the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and here's what he has been saying.
Well, the outcome didn't come as a surprise because if you look at the totality of the environment, the pressure that we are facing on the foreign exchange market, the pressure that we are experiencing with regard to reserves, the threat to inflation arising from issues of minimum wage, issues of spending, issues of budget releases, and so on. So quite a number of the macroeconomic variables were under pressure. And if you have such a situation, I think the only thing to do is to tread cautiously. It's not particularly a good time to relax some of these monetary conditions. So I think that is perhaps what has informed the decision of the central bank to hold all the rates. But we believe that maybe sooner or later we should begin to see a relaxation of the monetary conditions so that the economy can be better supported through credit. Because from the MPC report, we noticed that there was also a sharp decline in credit to the private sector, over time, which is also not good, because if you really want to drive the economy, you need to support the private sector with credit. But the report is showing that just about 1% or so, very marginal, the performance of credit to private sector was very low, which is not good for the economy. So overall, the decision of the CBN to hold rates was not out of place if we take into account the context in which the decision was taken, having regard to the risk to reserves, risk to exchange rate, risk to inflation.
Oil prices clawed back some losses on Monday, with Brent jumping back above $60 per barrel, but sentiment remained weak amid a broad sell-off in financial markets in past weeks. Brent crude oil futures rose 2.2% to $60.11 per barrel, while U.S. crude futures were up 66 cents at $51.08 per barrel. The gains partly made up for Friday's sell-offs, which traders have already dubbed Black Friday. And this downward pressure comes from surging supply and a slowdown in demand growth, which is expected to result in an oil supply overhang by next year. Rating firm Fitch said that even an expected supply cut led by OPEC following an official meeting on December 6 may not be enough to counteract the bearish forces. We'll take a look now at the stock market review. Do stay with us. Key market indices closed in the negative territory today, declining by 0.46%, and this drop pushed the all-share index down by 145 points, while the market capitalization went down as far as 11.512 trillion naira. Let's see who's making the top losers today. We see that Nigerian Breweries actually leads a pack of 18 losers today, and Nigerian Breweries is making this chart for the third straight day. The share price of NB has declined by almost 5 naira in 3 market days, and this is despite the company spending about 17.5 billion naira in advertising since the start of 2018. The fourth on the top losers chart we see here is May & Baker PLC, which saw its share price drop by 19 kobo. And this is as a result of profit takers who sold off their shares of the brand just 2 days to the closure of the application list for the ongoing rights issue by the company. May & Baker offered about 980 million ordinary shares of 50 kobo each at 2.50 naira per share to existing stakeholders, and that's in a bid to raise a 2.45 billion naira in new equity funds. The application list, which opened on October 22nd, is scheduled to close on November 28th. And let's see who are making the top gainers chart for today. We see that CAP is actually having an impressive spell this year. It has appreciated by 9.42%. And analysts have seen how CAP PLC is performing on the NSE, and they've predicted that the CAP might actually be among the best performing equities this year. And that's after the company reported a revenue growth of about 5.4 billion naira between just January and September 2018, and that's compared to 4.9 billion naira reported for the same period in 2017. It was also a good market day for GlaxoSmithKline, Pizet Cousins, and Flour Mills of Nigeria PLC. Taking a look at our top traders today, we see that Unilever, Zenith Bank, Interlink, and FCNB are making the most trade. Now to global stock, we see that FTSE is appreciating by 1.34%. Dow Jones is recovering from its losses from last week, appreciating by about 344 points, and that's to wrap up at 1.31%, while Nikkei climbed by over 160 points to close with a 0.76% rise. That's all from here, Fidelia.
Thank you, Annetta, for that update. So it seems global stock were having a good day, while the Nigeria Stock Exchange is the only one to close in the reds today.
That's correct.
That's quite sad. Thank you once again for that update. We'll go on a short break now and return with news on the foreign and sports scene. Stay with us.
Corruption not in my country.
What do you want to buy?
Potato. Small baskets. I want plantain. But why your plantain can't hard like this?
Madam, now the outside hard. Inside there, it is very soft.
Madam, wallahi make her no buy them. Make her show you something. What? What's in this one? Madam, this one now the chemical what they put on for the plantain make her ripe up.
So you dey put chemical for plantain where people go chop?
No water, no be chemical.
Water. You know, say Pela, I don't talk and say water and not be enemy. Drink them.
Where you collect that water, drink them.
I just stop finish. See my belly. It don't big. I just stop drink water finish.
Wait, you drink them now. I dey sell am plantain, I go come put am for chemical because I want to make a ripe ko. That one I talk now corruption. Corruption. Not be for this kaswa, come not be for this country. Na me take am.
Corruption not in my country.
Stop corruption now.
Glad to have you back. At least 22 police officers have been killed in a Taliban ambush in western Afghanistan. The attack on the police convoy in Farah province follows a wave of violence across Afghanistan in recent weeks, including a suicide bombing inside an army-based mosque. The Taliban and its smaller rival, the Islamic State group, have been inflicting record casualties on local forces this year, since the start of 2015, when local forces took over from U.S.-led NATO combat troops to secure the country. Nearly 30,000 Afghan soldiers and police have been killed. Experts have warned that the attrition rate is unsustainable. And in Uganda, the death toll from a boat accident on Lake Victoria is now at 33. The Saturday evening tragedy occurred hundreds of meters offshore as the boat carrying an estimated 100 travelers were en route from one beach to another in Mukono district near the capital Kampala. Police spokesperson Patrick Oyango says the number of bodies retrieved from the water stood at 33 on Monday, while 27 people have been rescued alive. He warned that the death toll is expected to rise. Well, in Somalia, Al-Shabaab gunmen and a suicide car bomber have struck a religious center, killing a cleric and at least 14 of his followers. The Islamic militant group had accused the cleric of insulting Prophet Muhammad, which he denied. The group was forced from Mogadishu in 2011, but it retains a strong presence outside the capital and launches frequent bombings and other attacks in a campaign to topple the federal government. And moving on to sports now, Super Falcons head coach Thomas Dennerby says the Nigerian ladies have proved their determination as the best team in the continent following their progress in the semi-finals of the 2018 African Women's Nations Cup. The Super Falcons will face the indomitable Lioness of Cameroon in the ALCON 2018 semi-final on Tuesday at the Accra Sports Stadium. The defending champions started the ALCON tournament on a disappointing note, going down to a shocking 1-0 defeat to the Bayana of South Africa, but they have recovered well to win their last two games. The Super Falcons finished second in Group B behind South Africa following Saturday's 6-0 win against Equatorial Guinea. A former Nigerian coach, Emmanuel Amunike, says he is hoping to take Tanzania to next year's Africa Cup of Nations. The East Africans last featured in the African showcase in 1980, where they lost 3-1 to host Nigeria in their opening match in Lagos. Though despite a 1-0 defeat at Lesotho, Taifa Stars are only a win away from their first AFCON appearance in 37 years. Tanzania will host regional rivals Cranes of Uganda in the last match of the qualifiers in March and will be needing a win or whatever margin to go through. Well, that is our news now. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I am Fidelia Aguncha. Bye for now.